Hi, in our last video, we looked at one of the three competencies that make up self-awareness, being emotional awareness. So today I want to look at the second competency that makes up our self-awareness, which is accurate self-assessment. So an accurate self-assessment is basically being able to identify what your strengths and limitations are. So in the sense of a job, somebody asks you what would be the top three things you do really well in your work. And you could list off, three strengths that that you do well because you've been open to feedback. And it has been reaffirmed that others also feel that this is a strength of yours. And limitations and what you can and can't do. So if someone says, can you use Excel Word during your interview and you can't, you need to say, no, I can't do that. Instead of saying, yes, I can, but you can say, no, I can't do it, but I am willing to go out and get the training that is required of me before you hire me. So that's important. What's also important when you know and have an accurate self-assessment is that you're willing to ask for help. So individuals that you look up to, who you know have the skills that you have yet to develop, that you're willing to go to them and ask for help. And then ask for feedback. Again, being open to feedback. If you don't know how your engagement with others or how you do a particular task is perceived by others, we can perceive we're doing things accurately that we're really not. We're good at fooling ourselves. So it's important to be open to feedback and have people around who care enough about you and your development that they're willing to share and provide you feedback. And not only that, potentially talk about ways in which you can improve. So, you may come up with strategies together. They may suggest a certain course for you to attend. But it's really important that accurate self-assessment exists. Because if you don't have that, then what is going to happen is you're really going to ruin your credibility really quick. Because if you're going into different job positions and you've stated that you can do something really well, and then you're observed on the floor that you cannot perform these duties you stated you're going to lose credibility. And not only that, you could have a very negative impact emotionally, physically on your other team members or clients that you're looking after. So it's essential. And you may find with individuals that don't have an accurate self-assessment is that they often brag about qualities that they're supposed to have potentially, but everybody knows that they don't. So potentially that team member that's going on and on about how great they are at presentations and how they can sell something to anybody, and half the team is rolling their eyes. So, one of the things that I do with the social emotional intelligence profiles is that if a profile indicates that an individual doesn't have an accurate self-assessment, then we do what's called a 360 assessment. And a 360 assessment basically asks individuals that engage with that person on a regular basis to provide them with confidential feedback. And then I would sit down and have a conversation with them, discussing what it is that their team members see that perhaps they don't. And, this is done with compassion and very gently, and they're aware it's happening. The conversations have happened prior. I just don't all of a sudden show up on behalf of an employee or employer and drop this on them. They've been part of the process. And so, an accurate self-assessment also helps that they don't take credit for other people's work, and which can really create resentment within a team, particularly if it's somebody in a leadership position who utilizes all of their employees underneath them to do the work, and then they claim that they've had all these ideas and they were the success of the project. They'll also micromanage, which many teams complain about, is micromanaging by their leaders, particularly because they were hired to do a job, and if you don't have the faith in them, then they kind of stop doing the work because of the resentment. And that's very difficult. Supervision is important, and accountability is important, but not on a 15-minute basis or an hourly basis. Sometimes just let people do the work and trust in them that they'll do it in the best that they can. In a team setting, you really want to have individuals that cooperate with one another instead of competing with one another. You're working towards the same objectives, the same goals in the end, and you really need to be moving together forward instead of spending so much time and energy fighting one another. And, leaders need to be very aware that when they're not accurately assessing themselves, that they can push themselves excessively hard, but also their employees excessively hard, and ask of them things that are unrealistic and that they can't do, and they set them up for failure, and then there's conflict, and then there's discussions about accountability. So you need to be in line with what are the individual strengths and limits, and the job that you ask them to do, are they actually able to do it, or are you asking something of them that is not appropriate? So this is the second competency that relates to self-awareness. Our first competency that we looked at in the previous video, if you missed it, is emotional awareness. And today we talked about accurate self-assessment. And the next video is going to talk about personal power. And that's the third competency that makes up self-awareness. So I hope you'll join me for that. Be well.